Johnny Carson was one of the most famous talk show hosts in American TV history, bringing all sorts of people onto his show and making audiences laugh like crazy, as well as getting said people to sometimes reveal interesting things about themselves. There's no denying that Carson was extremely good at what he did. But despite being a very talented comedian, and was even influenced by some of the best of all time, it might come as a shock to learn that Carson only ever appeared in one movie over his entire career, which was in the 1964 comedy Looking for Love. And this mainly came down to the fact that he hated the movie so much that he swore he would never do another movie again. And, true to his word, he never did. And today, I'd like to go over both Looking for Love as well as Carson's reaction to it after the fact. And there will be spoilers ahead, so if you'd like to check out the movie for yourself first, you should probably click off the video and come back to it another day. I'll be giving out no other spoiler warnings in this video. Okay, so Looking for Love was simply meant to be a lighthearted comedy made as a vehicle for the then popular singer Connie Francis, and features cameo appearances by many popular people of the day, including the aforementioned Johnny Carson. But I'll get back to him in a minute. Now, the plot centers around Francis playing a woman who wants to find the right man to settle down with, but ignores the guy who's actually interested in her and instead tirelessly pursues a man that her best friend is actually interested in. What then ensues is 70 minutes of Francis chasing after the wrong guy, and all the while it's painfully obvious at every turn, even to the other characters, that the right guy is right in front of her face and she can't see it. Now, if that plot sounds repetitive and like it would get old fast, it kind of does. Because as a man who's written books myself, I can safely say that it would be very difficult to stretch an idea like that into a feature-length film and have it not get boring and frustrating after a while. Heck, I'd even say that there wasn't enough material in a premise like that for a half-hour TV episode, but I digress. The point is, in order to keep things from getting dead boring, Francis ends up starting a clothing line, both to get the attention of the man she's chasing and to try and make ends meet. And somewhat surprisingly, it works. The line gets a big promotion, and she actually becomes pretty famous, which is what leads to the scene where she ends up on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Now, Carson, playing himself obviously, doesn't actually do that bad of a job in the scene in my opinion. Though granted, he's not exactly required to do anything difficult. For the 5 minutes he's on screen, all he's asked is basically to do what he did every night, except for a movie instead of a television audience, and have everything he does be scripted. And again, I wouldn't say he does the worst job at it. He even lets quite a few jokes be dropped at his expense. But that being said, once it was released, Carson didn't exactly look back on the whole thing fondly. Because long story short, critics hated it and pretty much ruined any chance Connie Francis had at an acting career. But to focus on Johnny Carson, he turned the movie into something of a punching bag on his show, and made it quite clear that he was of the opinion that his acting in it was horrible. And once again, he felt so strongly about this, and the movie as a whole, that he never made a guest appearance in a film ever again. He did appear on quite a few TV shows, but never in another movie. Now, whether he actually felt his acting was that bad, or if he just used it to make jokes at his own expense, isn't fully known. But what is known is that either way, he did not like that movie and was embarrassed to have been a part of it. Though, for what it's worth, famed critics Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel didn't seem to think too highly of his acting either when they made a guest appearance on his show. Siskel simply gave his performance a bad review, while Ebert gave him a good one while joking that he had been bribed into doing so. Now once again, that all could have been very well for the sake of comedy, but it is still often brought up when people talk about the critical reception of the movie, so take or leave that as you wish. So in the end, is Looking for Love really as bad as Johnny Carson would have you believe? Well, no, not really. As I said before, the biggest problem with the whole thing is that the entire narrative relies on pretty much a single punchline, and it's just not one that's very funny or capable of carrying an entire movie. In all honesty, it probably would have fallen into complete obscurity and been totally forgotten if it hadn't been for Carson's involvement. Because ironically, for how much he ended up hating it, he's the one that kept its reputation somewhat alive and infamous by using it as a constant punching bag on his show. Other than that, the only other reason it would be notable is for all the famous cameos it had. So in an ironic twist of fate, getting Johnny Carson as one of the guest stars was probably the best thing that could have happened to it. If only because Carson would have you believe that it was the worst movie ever made and that he gave the worst performance in it imaginable. Which, as I've already noted, is a pretty big exaggeration, but still speaks to just how much he hated the whole thing. But in the end, he was far from the only comedian to hate a movie he was in and turn it into a constant punchline. One would need to look no further than Jack Benny and The Horn Blows at Midnight for proof of that. But don't even get me started on how much he hated that movie. Okay, I think that was everything I had to say on that. So now I'd like to hear from all of you. Did you know that Johnny Carson only ever appeared in one movie, and as a result of hating it so much he never appeared in another, or not? And what do you think about his feelings on his performance and the movie as a whole? However you feel, please let me know in the comments below. And please keep in mind that the opinions expressed here are just that, opinions. And you most definitely do not have to agree with them. And thank you all for watching. It is all very much appreciated. And I hope to see you all next time.